You once said, I pay this rider an enormous amount of money. People talk about figures close to $4.5 million, and he's not delivering the results expected of him. Naturally, I criticize him. I believe that's entirely fair. But when a rider is tied to a contract, what real choices do you have? You can't simply dismiss him overnight. In that situation, criticism becomes the only pressure you can apply. If he had been riding for my Tinkoff Bank team, I would have terminated his contract, paid him 2 months' salary, and moved on without hesitation. After a meteoric rise in 2012 and 2013, when Peter Sagan seemed destined to dominate an entire generation, his momentum began to slow in 2014. By 2015, the doubts had grown louder. Despite continuing to race with aggression, creativity, and a style that thrilled fans, victories became increasingly difficult to secure. He attacked often, animated races, and remained constantly visible, but the results simply were not there. At the Spring Classics and the Tour de France, races that once appeared tailor-made for him, wins slipped through his fingers. Instead, Sagan developed a frustrating and unwanted reputation, the rider who was always there, but never on the top step. Second place, third place, again and again. Each near miss added to the pressure, fueling criticism from media, rivals, and even team management. For a rider widely viewed as a once-in-a-generation talent, the lack of victories felt almost inexplicable. The drought finally came to an end at the Vuelta a España. On stage 3, Sagan broke through, claiming a long-awaited victory and ending nearly 2 years without a Grand Tour stage win. It was a moment of relief, proof that the speed, instinct, and finishing kick were still there. Yet even this success felt incomplete. By that point, many fans, commentators, and former riders already believed Peter Sagan was the most naturally gifted cyclist in the world. He could sprint, climb, handle technical descents, survive brutal classics, and read races better than almost anyone. But one defining symbol was missing from his palmarès: the rainbow jersey of world champion. In 5 previous World Championship appearances, Sagan had finished inside the top 10 only once. For a rider of his ability, that statistic stood out sharply. Year after year, the title had slipped away through bad positioning, tactical mistakes, or simply bad luck. The absence of that single jersey became the loudest question mark hanging over his career. A reminder that talent alone does not guarantee greatness. As the next World Championships approached, the narrative was clear. Peter Sagan did not need more podiums. He did not need more close calls. He needed one defining victory, one moment that would silence the doubts and transform potential into legacy. At the World Championships in Richmond, Peter Sagan arrived with absolute clarity of purpose, to win the one title that had repeatedly slipped through his fingers. This was not just another race on the calendar. Victory here would do more than crown a world champion. It would validate years of expectation and permanently reshape his legacy. Fully aware of what was at stake, Sagan approached the race with uncharacteristic patience and discipline. Over the course of nearly 6 exhausting hours, he rode with remarkable restraint, deliberately staying out of the spotlight. He conserved precious energy, carefully studied his rivals, and resisted every instinct to attack too early, knowing that one mistake could cost him everything. As the race entered its final lap and the peloton charged toward the decisive climb on 23rd Street, Sagan sensed the shift. The moment he had been waiting for all day had finally arrived. After remaining virtually invisible for hours, he launched a sudden, explosive attack, violent, committed, and without a single glance back. As the road pitched upward, he immediately began to open a gap, his acceleration catching even the strongest riders off guard. Digging deeper than ever before, Sagan turned that short, brutal climb into the most important kilometer of his career.
Every pedal stroke was an act of defiance. Behind him, Olympic champion Greg Van Avermaet organized a frantic chase, with a line of elite riders straining to respond, their faces etched with pain and disbelief. The gap narrowed, then stabilized, but Sagan refused to surrender even a single meter. Summoning everything he had left, he powered through the final corner, legs burning, lungs on fire, carrying his dream toward the finish line. Seconds later, the outcome was beyond doubt. Peter Sagan had done it. He was world champion. In the moment that mattered most, under the heaviest pressure of his career, he delivered a masterpiece, one of the most daring and perfectly timed solo attacks ever witnessed at a world championship. The Richmond circuit suited his skill set precisely, but it was his intelligence, patience, and flawless sense of timing that truly made the difference. That single victory wiped away years of frustration, near misses, and unanswered questions. It marked a clear turning point, not just in one race, but in the arc of his career. What followed was the beginning of a new era. The 2016 season became the most complete and dominant of his life. Sagan collected 14 World Tour victories, showcasing his unmatched versatility, winning 3 stages at the Tour de France, conquering the Tour of Flanders, and claiming the European Road Championship. He was no longer simply a brilliant rider, he was the benchmark. A year later, Sagan returned to the World Championships as the defending champion. On paper, the flat course appeared harmless, even predictable. Many teams anticipated a controlled race, one that would inevitably end in a straightforward bunch sprint. The mood in the peloton was deceptively calm. Only the British and Belgian teams fully understood the looming danger, powerful crosswinds, strong enough to split the race apart and destroy any sense of order. Most riders recognized the threat only when it was already too late. As the tempo briefly eased and concentration slipped, the wind hit with full force. Britain and Belgium launched a ruthless, perfectly timed attack. In seconds, the peloton fractured into scattered groups. Speed surged beyond 72 kilometers per hour as panic spread through the field and chaos consumed the race. Caught completely off guard, entire teams were torn apart in seconds, including the Dutch squad. In brutal crosswind conditions, survival depends on slipping into a narrow, sheltered formation known as an echelon. Space is limited, positioning is everything, and miss it by even half a wheel and your race is effectively over. Once the gap opens, there is almost no way back. At the front, the riders who made the echelon committed fully, working together at a savage, unrelenting pace. The speed was so high that even elite riders were instantly distanced. Only one man managed to bridge across at the very last possible moment. The cameras barely caught it, but that rider was Peter Sagan. Within minutes, the damage was done. Nearly 3/4 of the peloton had been erased from the race, their world championship hopes gone. With the front group firmly established, Belgium and Great Britain took control, riding with authority and precision. The race was reduced to a select group, and from it emerged 3 true contenders for the rainbow jersey: Mark Cavendish, Tom Boonen, and Peter Sagan. After 257 punishing kilometers, legs empty, nerves frayed, and the world title would be settled in a blistering sprint. When the sprint finally opened, chaos consumed the road. Cavendish launched first, committing fully and forcing everyone to react. Boonen followed, powering through the confusion. In the disorder, Sagan saw something no one else did, a narrow gap that seemed to appear only in his imagination. Guided by pure instinct and flawless timing, he dove through the opening, unleashed his sprint, and crossed the line victorious once again. Unlike traditional sprinters, Peter Sagan does not rely on a carefully organized lead-out train or perfect conditions. He flourishes in chaos. He reads wheels instinctively, senses openings before they fully exist, and waits with uncanny patience before unleashing his power at precisely the right second. It is this rare combination of raw strength, tactical intelligence, and intuition that separates him from everyone else. That victory placed Sagan among an elite group of riders who had successfully defended a world championship title. Few in the history of the sport had managed such a feat. Yet even with 2 rainbow jerseys to his name, his story was far from complete. Ahead of the following World Championships, the signs were hardly encouraging. Sagan arrived at the venue just 48 hours before the race. He had been ill, had not trained for 3 days, and never once inspected the course. Many observers believed his presence was largely symbolic, a show of respect for the rainbow jersey, rather than a serious attempt to win. Expectations were low, and doubts were everywhere. As the race unfolded, Sagan once again disappeared into the background. He avoided attention, stayed out of trouble, and remained invisible within the peloton, conserving what little energy he had. Then, with just 3 kilometers remaining, the unexpected happened. The live television feed suddenly failed. For 4 long minutes, viewers around the world were left staring at nothing but the finish line, unaware that the race and history itself was being decided out of sight. Later footage finally revealed what the live broadcast had missed. Riding completely alone, Peter Sagan launched a relentless chase, single-handedly closing down not 1 but 2 dangerous breakaways. Rival after rival tried to attack him, sensing weakness and hoping fatigue would finally take its toll. Yet after 6 brutal hours in the saddle, Sagan refused to surrender. He absorbed every acceleration, covered every move, and kept dragging the race back under control through sheer determination. Gradually, he shaped the race into exactly the scenario he wanted, a reduced group sprint where instinct and timing matter more than raw speed. With 500 meters to go, Sagan made a decisive move, sliding calmly onto the wheel of Alexander Kristoff, one of the most powerful sprinters in the world. That single choice changed everything. A sprinter can sustain maximum power for only around 12 seconds, which makes timing absolutely critical. Kristoff launched his sprint with 250 meters remaining, committing fully and unknowingly providing the perfect lead-out. Sagan waited, measured every second, and then, at precisely the right moment, he struck. The timing was flawless. With a perfectly executed bike throw at the line, history was written in a single decisive movement. Peter Sagan crossed the finish line as world champion for the 3rd consecutive year, an achievement unprecedented in the history of the sport, something no rider before him had ever managed to accomplish. At just 27 years old, Peter Sagan had already secured his place among cycling's immortals. He didn't simply win in the rainbow jersey, he redefined what it meant to race in it. He shattered the so-called curse that haunted world champions, often competing without the protection of a dominant team, winning races even when the course, the conditions, and the tactics appeared stacked against him. Time and again, when logic said he should fail, Sagan found a way to prevail, cementing a legacy built not just on victories, but on brilliance, resilience, and instinct.